Greetings everybody, I am here in Jodhpur, India, and below the fantastic fort here, Mehrangarh Fort, there is a rock garden. And it is, if you check out my lips here, they're very dry. So what they've done here at this particular rock garden is that they've brought back a lot of the indigenous plants from forever or however long Rajasthan has been in existence, and they've created a very unique garden here. So let's check it out. The entrance fee, it is $100 per person and $200 for the guide. So we had a massive change in plans. Our guide, who I thought was quite willing to play along with me doing my YouTube, was not that comfortable to be on camera, and he felt he didn't have the requisite permission from the authorities. Again, I'm in a foreign country, I need to respect the culture and also respect whatever rules are here. So we went on the tour and we loved it so much, I came back and I wanted to share this unique aspect of, if you come to Jodhpur, to come and discover a little bit about the geology, a little bit about the climate and the natural history of this area, but also, more importantly, the efforts they're taking to reintroduce various species of plants and animals and also protect them. Because there's a very unique fauna and flora here that is like no else in the world. Let's go forth. As a traveler, I am a bit of a geography geek, obviously, but I like to tune into what my background is. I got involved in a lot of aspects of environmental regulation, building infrastructure. A lot of these things you have to know a lot. You have to know a little bit about how the various media of water, air, and land work. And here, it is super interesting. The first thing that you'd witness when you get here is this display on the colors of the desert. What you quickly realize, and it jogs the memory very quickly, is that the Indian subcontinent slammed into Asia, and Rajasthan is on the western part of that Indian subcontinent. So a lot of these areas used to be under the sea. So south and east of here is an area which is known for its salty sand, and the plants that grow here really thrive on that salty soil. There's also more stable dunes, and it's a desert national park. But the other aspect that's very evident here is the volcanic rock. This whole area was full with volcanism, and a lot in Jaisalmer as well as here in Jodhpur, the forts are built upon the old parts of the remaining caldera that were the plugs of volcanoes. And that's why they have, they're really on a stable surface, and they stick out. So think about, like, it's not exactly the same, but in Wyoming and in Utah, when you see those big monuments, think about that. But these are much more rocky and way more stable. The other thing too is, as we're part of the ancient seabed, limestone is very abounds here, and these are the types of plants that grow on limestone. The area was well known to the locals in terms of what can and can't grow, but the British Geological Survey came here and they started to do an assessment of what types of plants grow well on rocks. And a little story about that is that they looked at the region and it looked a little bit like Mexico. So they saw mesquite from there and they said, well, mesquite will thrive here. And they brought it in and it did very well. And it provided fuel for the local tribes as well as anybody who is here. But and because the Maharaja at the time had his pilot license, he was more than happy to go and spread out the seeds of mesquite throughout the region. So guess what? mesquite became an invasive species out here, and there's a lot of effort right now going into getting rid of all the mesquite. But in doing that, they also started to discover what the native plants were, and this is part of the effort. Propagate the native species, but also reestablish them within the region. One of the things I get obsessed about, and for those of you who've seen some of my other videos, I'm a bit of an urban planning geek. And one of the things when you are looking at urban planning, you really do have to think about all the things that constitute a city. Water is critical to this. When it rains here, it rains heavily. So they had to create gullies of great depth to channel the water into a reservoir, which helped sustain the society here and provided water much needed for the establishment of the fort, but also the local community that sprung up here in Jodhpur. If you do have some fitness issues, please keep that in mind, because going down is not too difficult, but it will challenge your balance. And coming back up, the stairs are fairly steep. The gully, it is between two fortified walls here at the beginning, because one, you have to be able to channel the water down here, but two, you got to keep out the invaders. And the invaders, oddly enough, were also Mughal. So it's kind of like, if you think about politics, like in the US, it's sort of like the battle between the Democrats and the Republicans right now. And there's always these arguments, think of the church as an example. How many sects of Christianity are there? So that was going on in Mughal land back then. Hey there. Say hi, YouTube. The walls of the gully are rock solid, obviously. They are the remains of the volcanic activity which were endemic to the area, because like every area with volcanic activity is usually near fault lines, and these fault lines were connected to when the Indian Subcontinent joined with Asia. So you're going to see the remnants of that. As many of you know who watch this, they know I'm a bit of a wine geek, and you can see the gradation and the coloration in the soil here, and they call it here tuff. And for the fellow wine geeks here, tuff is also known as tufa, and tufa is very popular in Southern Europe, and because a lot of the areas are very arid, and it's that effort of trying to propagate vines on really rocky soils that give the power to those grapes, especially in the flavor and the ageability. If you do go to somewhere like Chablis, like the limestone I pointed out upstairs, that is what gives that distinct flavor, especially with the calcium carbonate in the soil, that distinct steeliness and dryness and high acidity associated with the wines from that region north of Burgundy. When it rains here, they said it usually rains a couple times a year, and the guide mentioned that at some points it could be up to 3 feet deep in this gully. And you think about that in a desert region, that's incredible. So you needed to have something this wide, even though it's in an arid climate. One very unique plant that was pointed out to us is this thing that looks like a cactus. And the name for this, it is euphorbia, which is a very strange name for a plant because it kind of means good fear. I suppose, because of some of the things it gives to people, maybe it does instill fear. Who knows? The flowers, this is around the time that they are at their peak. We were told that they flower usually in January. The flowers attract a lot of bees, and the bees here are very small. There's none of these big bumblebees. And they're also known for their honey here. With a few exceptions of trees that did come from the western part by Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, which are closer to Delhi and the far eastern reaches of the Thar Desert when it starts to become the plains and getting into the area around the Ganges, that There's just those plants there, but all the other ones are endemic to Rajasthan. We saw this tree earlier on in the fort, and this is what people use here as a substitute for a toothbrush. There are a couple interesting local trees, and this one, it has a very tough leaf. The locals used to put them together and make a plate, but they also use it for making cigarettes. They roll tobacco in it like a cigar, but they also use it for cannabis for their BDs. One thing that we couldn't help but notice were that some of these trees had these steel cages around it. And there's a very good reason for that. Let's take a look right here. If you look carefully, this is a tree that they're trying to protect, but this tree has been well gnawed at. They're porcupines here. And this is something I didn't know before. The porcupines in North America and South America are able to climb trees, but the ones out here in Africa and Asia, they don't. So they gnaw on the tree bark. And it's imperative that the trees have enough time to regenerate to make sure that they're able to grow. So they keep an eye on that and give some protection to the young ones so they actually have a chance to survive. Moving on, we have this fascinating plant here. First off, the flowers here, even though it's past the season and we're catching it at the tail end, this is the flower of Rajasthan. It's a brilliant saffron color. But the tree it's on, which is not necessarily the best representative of that tree, it's often referred to as the teak of India, but it is tougher than that and it is termite resistant. And if you saw in my earlier video on the fort, the doors are made out of that wood. And there is a grove of these trees now because, of course, when they discovered that this is really heavy, dense wood that's termite resistant, everybody wanted to get their hands on it, and guess what? Overforested it. And hopefully along the way we get to see what these trees look like in real life, but they are huge. And that's what they cut the doors out of. And a lot of the wood that was used in the fort was taken from that particular tree. And those doors have been there for centuries, and they still, and they're gonna go for centuries more. Okay, folks, this is the money shot here of why you should do this rock garden here. More than just learning about the fauna and flora of Rajasthan, you get the best view of the fort. And the fort, as the sun goes down in the late afternoon, has a different glow to it because of the sandstone that they use here and the shade of the sandstone that you have. You get the picture. That's the money shot right there. And so few people come to this little park. And it's 100 rupees, and you can get a guide for 200 rupees, and it is well worth it, especially, again, for that view. There's nothing else like this in the world. The last important feature of this nature walk, should you choose to go out the exit back to the old town, is you pass by the reservoir. While the fort had its own water supply, and they were able to manage that there, this was mainly set up for the local population. And this is where the gully that we walk through empties into. And we're hopefully just going to walk along a little bit here to show you where it ends. As we wind down the path here, you can see the blue homes in the distance. Blue was primarily reserved for Brahmins, the highest caste. And interestingly enough, with the historic preservation going on now, there is a lot more opportunity for people who are non-Brahmins or do carry a Brahmin name to paint the house blue. Democracy is a good thing. Oh, it's like a cow gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our guide told us that this was a very interesting way to get out, but sanitation is something that is things that need to be resolved in India. Hopefully there'd not be any open sewage here. Down the stairs here. At this point, this is the end of the reservoir, and I've hit a dead end because I'm in the wrong place. Jaipur is supposed to be quite famous for its spice blends. Most of the spices would be ground and prepared in Delhi, I was told. And they'd be brought here and they'd have their blends established. So this is a very interesting square here. We have our little flags here, a little retail here, some pretty dresses that let people into the old city. And straight ahead is the famous clock tower of Jodhpur. This clock tower is one of the best known landmarks, and a lot of people use it as a reference point. It is at one of the entrances to the fort, if you want to get there by foot. And the area around it is a very nice bazaar. And people do a lot of their groceries here. And this is the main hub for shopping in Jodhpur. Okay folks, I'm just going to wrap up here with my sisters. We've had a lovely adventure today. We saw the fort, we did on the nature walk, we did a little bit of shopping, and we got to end it out here at this beautiful clock tower. It's been an exciting day here, and I'm glad that you enjoyed a little walk around the old city and leaving the nature walk and finding our way to this major landmark here in Jodhpur that you too, if you do make it to Jodhpur, should come and check it out and check out the market here. It's very cool. All right. Thanks again for watching. I truly appreciate the time you spent with me. And do like me. Go out there. Taste the world.